Good morning. It's so nice to be back in person with you all. So when Jim asked me if I could give a quick overview of residential protest resolution and the First Amendment, I'm pretty sure that my first reaction was to laugh out loud and say, no, I don't think so. And then we proceeded to talk for 30 minutes about how I was going to do this in 5 minutes. So here I am, and off we go. So as an overview, for those of you who may have missed it, been a little isolated for the last couple of years, there's been kind of a big increase in public incivility and unfortunately even outright threats and aggression towards public officials. One increasing expression has been to take rallies and protests to the homes and neighborhoods of public officials, and in response, several cities actually have enacted ordinances prohibiting targeted protesting or picketing generally within 300 feet of a residential home. While there's been a significant uptick in this activity, actually neither the conduct nor the regulation is new. The San Jose ordinance that Jim referenced and serves as the model for a lot of other regulation that's happening right now dates back to the 1990s. And San Diego's ordinance is from the early 2000s. LA did update theirs very, very recently to go from 100 feet to 300 feet in residential areas. So in California, we don't have to speculate on the legality of the ordinances because both were upheld against First Amendment challenges by the State Court of Appeal and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, respectively, the federal court. And even the Supreme Court's weighed in on these issues going back to 1988. So while we lawyers do have a tendency to overcomplicate things from time to time, you don't actually have to be a constitutional scholar to figure this stuff out. It does, as I think the law should, roughly reflect what I think most of us would consider to be common sense and common community decency. Courts at all levels approach government regulation of speech, as I think we all should, with elevated scrutiny. The right to speak out on issues of public concern, to gather with like-minded people to do it, and to urge our public officials to take action and make change on public issues is arguably the most fundamentally important right at the foundation of our democracy. It's why it gets to be first. But even the most fundamental rights are not unlimited, and their exercise has to be balanced against other important rights, like personal privacy in our homes and family matters, protection from harassment and intimidation in our workplaces, and security of people and property. Some of these lines have been really blurred during COVID, where our homes have become our workplaces, physical access to our traditional public spaces, and direct contact with our elected and public officials has been so limited. And things are just more intertwined and fluid, particularly with social media and online interaction. But still, the basic structure for First Amendment speech regulation holds. Political speech and debate of public issues in public forums get the very highest level of protection under the law. Basically, unless you're threatening or inciting violence in the public square, you have the right to say what you want to and about your public officials in those public spaces. That's part of the job we signed up for. But the government can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech in public forums, so long as the regulation is content neutral, so we don't get to regulate based on whether we like or don't like the speech. It's narrowly tailored to serve a significant governmental interest, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And it leaves open alternate channels for communication, so we can tell people where to go to talk about important public issues, but we can't tell them they can't do it at all in public spaces, and we can't send them to places where the message is likely to be diluted or inaccessible to the public. Courts hold a special regard for the sanctity of people's homes as a place where they can be safe and unbothered, where they have the right to choose whether and to whom they listen. The Supreme Court, actually, in a case called Frisbee versus Schultz, that 1988 case, held that protecting residential privacy is a significant governmental interest that justifies regulation, and stated, quote, "There simply is no right to force speech into the home of an unwilling listener, even a public unwilling listener." But the Supreme Court was careful to point out that the statute they upheld in Frisbee was narrowly tailored. They said, "We construe the ban to be a limited one, and that is necessary. Only focused picketing taking place solely in front of a particular residence is prohibited." And they did not suggest that it would be okay to outright prohibit marching on residential sidewalks or past people's houses simply because it's a residential neighborhood. Ordinances like those in San Jose and LA attempt to strike a balance between public and private interests. In short, you generally have the right to say what you like to and about a public official in public forums, but you don't necessarily have the right to say it in their homes while they're sitting in their living room with their kids. That's just rude. But before you run off to your city councils or mine and tell them that the SLO city attorney said that they should pass some home protest ordinances, I'll leave you with this. Just because we have the right to say something does not make it the right thing to say. I believe we as individuals, not as government regulators, have the greatest power to regulate this type of behavior effectively. Really, it's golden rule, everything I needed to know, I learned in kindergarten kind of stuff, right? Everything's elevated right now. People are fearful, they're isolated, they're angry, and they're tired, and they're looking for an outlet for that. The best tonic for that, in my opinion, is our relationships with one another and with our community. So, ask yourself and your family and your friends and your colleagues and your neighbors and your coworkers and whoever the influential people in this room have connections with, would you want an angry crowd greeting your family on the curb of your home for something that you did at work when you went home at night? If not, then maybe we should consider elevating ourselves and those who value our opinions not to do it to someone else, even a public official. In our community, I still hold hope that our compassion will emerge as our most effective form of regulation, and I call upon each and every one of you to help us make that true here, even when we're not seeing it true everywhere. Thanks for listening. I look forward to a continuing conversation, and I wish you and your families happy, healthy, peaceful holidays. Thank you.